Okay, so look up at the night sky with me for a second, just in your mind. You see those patterns, right? The shapes your brain just connects.
Mm-hmm. Like the Big Dipper.
Exactly, yeah. Or, those three stars that make Orion's belt. We usually just call them constellations, I think.
We often do, yeah.
But what if I told you there's another word, a specific word for those patterns? And get this, it also means something completely different, something on a printed page.
Okay, I think I know where you're headed. It sounds like one of those words with a hidden life, doesn't it? We're diving into asterism today.
That's the one, asterism. And based on the material we've looked at, astronomy stuff, typography guides, we're going to unpack it.
Yeah, figure out what it means in the sky, what it means on paper, and crucially, how those two things are connected. Where does the word even come from?
Right. Our mission, basically, is to get a good handle on this word. It's a quick overview definition, history, how it's used.
It really does pop up in very different fields, but the root connects them. Let's start with the sky, though. Astronomy feels like its natural home.
Okay, sounds good. So astronomical asterism, what exactly is that?
Well, at its heart, it's just a pattern, a group of stars that we recognize that catches our eye when we look up at night. It's a visual thing.
Makes sense. But you mentioned constellations. This is the key bit, I think, from the sources. How is an asterism different from a constellation? Because I know I've heard the Big Dipper called a constellation.
Right, and that's the common confusion. It's where modern astronomy gets really specific.
Yeah.
A constellation isn't just a pattern anymore. Think of it like a territory on the sky map.
A territory?
Yeah, the International Astronomical Union, the IAU, they officially divided the whole sky into 88 regions, defined areas with borders.
Like celestial countries or states?
Exactly. Perfect analogy. Every star, every galaxy, it officially belongs inside one of those 88 constellations.
Okay, so constellation, official territory. Then what's the asterism again?
The asterism is just the pattern of stars, the noticeable shape. It could be inside one of those constellation territories, or sometimes it might even stretch across the borders of a couple of them. It's unofficial. That's what we see.
So more subjective, maybe. Like, if I see a shape, is that an asterism?
Kinda, yeah. The sources do point out they're often observer-defined patterns, and they can definitely have different names in different cultures. You mentioned the Big Dipper.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably the most famous asterism. We call it the Big Dipper here, but over in the UK, it's often called the Plough. Same stars, same pattern.
But it's not its own constellation.
No, that whole pattern is actually just part of the official constellation Ursa Major, the Great Bear. The Dipper is an asterism within Ursa Major.
Okay, that clicks. Big Dipper in Ursa Major. What about Orion's belt?
Another perfect example. Everyone knows those three stars in a row. That's an asterism.
And they're part of the bigger constellation?
Orion, the hunter. Exactly.
Yeah.
The belt is the easy-to-spot asterism within the larger official constellation.
Gotcha. And you said some cross borders.
Mm-hmm. That really shows they aren't constellations. The Summer Triangle is a great one.
Okay.
Big triangle, super obvious in the summer sky, right?
Yeah.
It's made of three really bright stars, Vega, Altair, and Deneb.
Yeah, I think I know that one.
Well, Vega is in the constellation Lyra, Altair is in Aquila, and Deneb is in Cygnus. Three stars, three different official constellations, but they form one giant, well-known asterism.
Okay, wow. That makes the difference really clear. What about the Southern Cross? Is that a constellation or an asterism? I feel like I've heard both.
That one's a bit tricky because it's kind of both. Crux is the official name of one of the 88 constellations. It is the Southern Cross constellation. But the really bright, distinctive cross shape made by the main stars within Crux. That pattern is also commonly called the Southern Cross asterism.
So the asterism is like the main feature of the constellation itself.
Pretty much, in that case. And history plays a part, too. The sources mention that way back, like in Ptolemy's time around 150 CE, the stars we now call Crux weren't their own constellation. They were just seen as an asterism within the constellation Centaurus.
No way. So the official map changed over time. That's really interesting.
Definitely.
Now, the stars themselves, the ones making up these patterns, like the Dipper or the Triangle, are they actually close to each other out there in space?
Almost never. That's another wild part the sources highlight.
Really?
Yeah, the stars forming an asterism can be at hugely different distances from us. They just happen to line up from our viewpoint here on Earth.
So it's like an illusion.
Totally. Take the constellation Triangulum. It's small, looks like a simple triangle. But those three stars, one's about 35 light years away, another's around 50, and the third is like 127 light years away.
Whoa, not exactly neighbors.
Not at all. It just looks like a triangle from Earth. There's another one mentioned called the Coathanger asterism.
Right.
Looks just like one,
Yeah.
right? But studies show those stars aren't related, just a chance alignment at different depths.
Mind blown. Okay. So they're unofficial patterns, often illusions. Why are they still useful then in astronomy?
Oh, they're super practical. Even without official status, they're easy to spot, right? So you can use a familiar asterism, like the Big Dipper, to help you find other things.
Like pointing the way.
Exactly, pointing to the North Star or helping you locate fainter constellations or galaxies nearby. And of course, for thousands of years before GPS and all that,
Navigation.
absolutely vital. They were the original sky maps for sailors and travelers.
Okay. So astronomical asterism.
Mhm.
Unofficial star pattern, different from a constellation territory, often an illusion of perspective, but really handy for finding your way. Got it. That's one meaning.
Now, hold on, because we're about to take a sharp turn.
Okay.
This same word, asterism,
Mm.
it has a whole other life. On the printed page. In typography.
Wait, what? Typography. How?
It does. And it's not a coincidence. The name comes directly from the stars. The typographical symbol is meant to look like a little group of stars.
A star pattern. On paper. What does it look like?
The classic one is this symbol. See? 3 asterisks, usually in a triangle.
Oh, yeah, I think I have seen that maybe. Like 3 little stars.
Exactly. And the sources say sometimes it's just 3 asterisks in a row horizontally. Apparently that version has its own nickname.
A dinkus.
Dinkus. Okay, I love that. So you have this symbol, Ebo or Dinkus. What's it for in writing?
Well, its main job is basically to signal a break. Like if you want a pause or a shift in topic within a chapter, but maybe not a full section break with a new heading.
Ah, so like putting some space but using a symbol instead.
Precisely. Especially the horizontal one, the dinkus. It separates chunks of text.
Okay. Any other uses?
Yeah, the triangular one could apparently also be used to draw your eye, like pay attention to what comes next. And sometimes, kind of mysteriously, it meant the piece was untitled.
Untitled. Or like the author didn't want to be named. Possibly. There's an example mentioned with the composer Robert Schumann. He apparently used it before some short, untitled piano pieces. Adds a bit of flair, I guess.
Huh. Weird.
And then there's a super specific one in meteorology on those weather station maps. The symbol Euro actually means moderate snowfall.
Moderate snowfall. Wow, okay, that's random. So is this dinkus thing something I'd see in books today?
You know, probably not much anymore. The sources seem to agree it's become quite rare, sort of
Oh.
obsolete.
Really? Why?
Well, we just tend to use other things now, don't we? Like
Well-
just putting extra white space between paragraphs or a simple horizontal line or using subheadings. They do the same job.
Simpler, I guess.
Yeah. But if you want to see them in action, the sources mention James Joyce's Ulysses, the original 1922 edition. Apparently, it uses dinkuses quite a lot to break up sections.
So it's like a little fossil in the world of punctuation. Bit like those star patterns not officially mapped anymore, maybe, but still there if you look.
That's a nice way to put it. It does feel like both meanings are about marking out patterns, doesn't it?
Yeah. Which makes me wonder about the word itself. Where did it come from? Does the history connect these two meanings?
It absolutely does. That's the cool part. Both the sky pattern and the page symbol trace back to the same place,
Which is?
ancient Greek. The English word asterism comes from Greek asterismos,
Okay, asterismos, and that meant
a group of stars, plain and simple.
a group of stars. Well, that makes total sense for the astronomical meaning. And I guess the typographical symbol looks like little stars, so.
Bingo. They just borrowed the name because the symbol looked like a little asterismos.
Huh. What about constellation then? Is that Greek too?
Nope, different root. Also ancient, but Latin this time. Constellation comes from the Latin constellatis.
Constellati. Does that mean group of stars too?
It does. Set of stars, basically. It comes from stella, which is the Latin word for star.
Okay, wait. So Greek aster means star, gives us asterismos, group of stars, which becomes asterism. And Latin stella means star, gives us constellatis, set of stars, which becomes constellation.
You got it.
2 words from 2 languages, both basically meaning star group. But in English, they ended up with these very specific different jobs. One for the official sky zone, one for the unofficial pattern, and the punctuation mark.
Isn't that neat? It shows how language evolves, takes words, and gives them specialized roles, and how a visual resemblance, the symbol looking like stars, could create a whole new meaning for a word.
It really does. So bringing it all together for you listening,
Yeah?
why should you care about this word asterism? What's the takeaway?
Well, for one, you now have the right word. When you see the Big Dipper, you can think, that's the asterism inside Ursa Major. It just adds a little precision to how you see the sky.
And maybe you'll spot that rare symbol in an old book or even just the dinkus, and you'll know what it is. A typographical asterism, a little echo of the stars used to structure the text.
Exactly. But maybe the bigger idea, the thing this whole deep dive kind of points to, is how we humans are always looking for patterns, aren't we? Whether we're connecting stars billions of miles away into familiar shapes, or using little symbols to organize our thoughts on a page, we're pattern seekers. This one word, asterism, kind of captures that impulse in both its meanings.
From the cosmic scale right down to the punctuation mark. That's actually a really cool connection. Okay, so to wrap up, we explored asterism. We found its main meaning. An unofficial but recognizable pattern of stars in the sky, like the Big Dipper or Summer Triangle, different from a constellation, which is an official region.
And often just a trick of perspective, those stars usually aren't actually close together.
Right. Then we jump to its other life. A typographical symbol, or the dinkus, used to break up text, visually mimicking stars, though it's pretty rare now.
And we tie both meanings back to their shared root. The Greek word asterismos, a group of stars, ultimately from aster, the Greek for star.
Showing how language evolves and borrows across fields.
And highlighting that human knack for finding and using patterns everywhere.
So the thought to leave you with is maybe this. As you go about your day, what other patterns are you noticing? Things that maybe don't have an official name, aren't formally defined, but you recognize them anyway. Maybe they're in nature, maybe in conversation, maybe online. What are the unnamed asterisms in your world, and what connections are you making? Maybe the most interesting patterns are the ones we find for ourselves.